let's talk about cloud storage and what it means to have your files in the cloud. Well, great, they're up there. As you can see with Bob Jones here, he has his files up in pCloud. He's got them all synced up nicely, and he's also got another one in OneDrive. So very happy with his cloud. But what if he wants a bit of peace of mind? What if he wants to make a local copy of everything to say, you know what, I can actually hold an external drive that has all my data on it, whether it be pCloud, OneDrive, doesn't matter what it is. I want to be able to hold it and know the files are there, just in case something goes wrong with the cloud. Who knows? I mean, it's unlikely, but hey, you know, things like that can happen. Also, what if you wanted to say, you know what, I don't want to use OneDrive anymore, or I don't want to use pCloud anymore. I want to make an exact replica of my cloud drive onto a local drive, so I can just keep it locally and do whatever I want with it. So let me show you how you can do that. I might just add, it's especially useful if you were saying, hey, I want to leave pCloud or leave OneDrive and I want to be able to get everything down. But what you need to be able to do is not just say, hey, I want to back it up to a local drive. It sounds a bit weird, I know, but what you can do, I mean, you can go in your pCloud here and you could click on Documents and you can hit Download. And what it's going to do is it's going to zip up the files for you and download a zip so you can then keep it on your machine. You can do exactly the same with OneDrive. This is not what I'm talking about. That's way too simple, and it's not really what we want to achieve. What we want to achieve here is a way where I can just double click on a file and it will synchronize everything I have in either pCloud or OneDrive, whatever you have, onto a local drive. I don't want to be messing with downloading these files, making sure I've got this, have different versions of it, and it just becomes an unmanageable mess. So we need a nice, easy way to say I'm going to sync my OneDrive to an external device or sync my pCloud to an external device. And that's what I'm going to show you about today. So what we do is we've got a USB drive here, and you can see it's now empty, and we want to make a copy of, let's say we do pCloud first. Now, if you want to just know about OneDrive, just skip ahead on this video and learn about OneDrive there. But for now, let's just look at the pCloud. Now, the way pCloud works is everything that it syncs up from these different folders, it puts obviously in pCloud, as you can see, and it gives you a pCloud drive. Now, if I click on here, you can see that everything is copied up here as well as, plus anything that you've copied up to pCloud that is not synchronized with your machine. You might have, I don't know, a few files that you want not synchronized to your desktop. You're just going to throw them up into the cloud and keep them there. We want to make a replica of your pCloud drive here onto a local device and have it updating constantly at will, not an automated sync process. You would go in and actually do this sync process, but it's very easy to do. So what we'll do is we'll do that for the P drive because that's what points to it. Now, remembering also that the P drive is just a virtual view of what's in pCloud. The files aren't actually on the machine. So if I go to here, Documents, and have a look at these files here, you can see it's missing that little sync icon that you have in OneDrive because, as I say, it's a virtual drive just pointing at it. Now, it does keep a cached copy of these files. Now, if we go into the pCloud program, you can see if we go across to Settings and have a look at disk usage here, you can see the on-disk cache size is set to 5 gig. That means everything we do with these files in the P drive, it's going to keep 5 gig of that onto the machine and obviously rotate that through as you use them. So you could up that. I mean, you could make that 20 gig, 30 gig, whatever you want to do, whatever your machine will dictate that you have space to do. You could keep it as the cached version. We'll speed up this backup process if you increase that. Otherwise, it will then obviously need to download the files while it's copying them onto your other device. I just want to mention that because this is a handy little setting if you'll find that your pCloud is continuously trying to download files onto that this virtual P drive as you want to use things. But as you can see here, we've got everything synced up nicely from the previous videos. You would have seen that, and it's all in this, like I say, P drive. So what we'll do is we will make a directory on this little D drive here, and I'm going to call this one, we'll call it pCloud Backup. No spaces, and there's a reason for the no spaces. You'll see that later. I'm going to make one in here. We'll call it OneDrive Backup as well, just for fun. And then I'm going to make a file, which is here, a text document, and we're going to call it Backup pCloud. Okay, now it's just, as I say, it's just a text file. Now I'm going to edit that text file, and we're going to put in these commands here, which are just basically DOS commands. If you've used DOS commands or command shell commands before, we're going to use the program called robocopy. Now, robocopy is something we've used for many years in IT infrastructure. Awesome little program. What it does is it allows us to take one directory to another directory and synchronize changes between them. Very, very simple, but it's very, very handy to have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have robocopy. Let me give it some syntax. I'm going to say I'm going to robocopy everything from P drive onto, and you can see here the USB is D, so keep an eye on if that does change when you connect it, but obviously D drive here, and we'll call it D drive pCloud backup. Now, if you do have spaces in there, let's say you did have a space in the pCloud backup, you can't do that. That's not going to work with DOS. What you would have to do there is effectively do that to it, and that's how you can get away with that. In this case, I don't need to. I'm just going to remove those speech marks there, like so. Now what I'm going to do is say robocopy everything from P drive onto D drive pCloud backup, but I'm also going to put a /s, which means do the subdirectories as well. Now here's the kicker command here, which is /mir, which is short for mirror, and that will mirror the contents of what you've got in your P drive onto the D drive there. Now I can also put another couple of commands in there that if it finds a file in use or can't do it, does it want to retry, how long is it going to wait for, which we might say 0 retries and don't wait between them. It's not totally necessary, but for good housekeeping we'll just keep that in there as well. Okay, now I'm going to put a pause on the end as well, so we can then see the results as it's going through. Now we will save that file, and what I do need to do, however, is I do need to run up a command prompt. Just bring that down here so you can see what's going on, because what I will need to do is go into D drive here. I like to do things effectively in DOS, like I say. But if we look at the directory, you can see backup pCloud is a text file. We need to rename, so it's just rename space, and we put in a B, press tab, it'll fill that in for us. Space again, B, fill it in, and we're just going to make it a CMD file. Now you could do that if you've got extensions turned on in your browser, your file explorer. You can then do that obviously, but you can see what it's done is it's now turned that into a Windows commands script. Now I can run it from here. I can double click on it to run it. In this case, what I'll do is I'll close this one out and I will double click here, and you can see straight away what it's doing is taking a copy of the P drive and copying it to our USB. Now in this particular machine, it's got 5 gig worth of cache, and you can see it's got everything local, obviously, on that cache, so it's happening very quick, and it's copying that to the D drive. As it goes through, you can see it's finding, it says new directory, new file, and so the first time you run it, it's going to take a little while to go through. Basically, like I always say, good English thing here, go and have a cup of tea and come back and see what it's done. So we're going to do that. I'll pause it now and we'll just catch up when it has completed. Okay, look at that. We have copied 1.4 gig of data onto the D drive. Let me just put that down here. Just leave it there for a second. I want to show you what that looks like. You can see on the pCloud backup on the USB drive, it now looks exactly the same. Completely usable. There's no caching or virtual pointing. These files are there on that machine. Look at some of these. You can see they're all there. So that backup is done. Now, what happens though? Let me just go back there. Sorry. What happens if we make changes into the source, which is obviously these ones here? How does that backup? Is it going to take the same amount of time to do the backup? Well, the quick answer to that is no. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say we go into the documents file here and we put a couple of extra files in there. So this might be a normal way of working. You've added to your documents and you've come back obviously a little while later and you say, well, you know what, I really should update that backup which is sitting on that USB drive. But normally what you would do is you would say, oh, I'm going to update these files and copy what I've changed. And no, we don't want to do that. That's a mess. We need to automatically say, well, what is different from here, and get it updated onto this USB. If I look at these files here, you can see that if on the USB backup, go into documents, You can see clearly the backup is out of date. So what do? Really easy. All you got to do there is run that file again. Let me just go this one here and just close that out. When you press any key to continue it, it will actually just finish it up. We'll just run it again and see what it does. Now the nice thing is everything is already synced up into the P drive, and because we've got quite a large caching turned on, it's going to be quite quick. It may need to download some of those files if necessary, but looking at that, you can see what it's done is it's saying, well, there are new files in the P drive documents, but there are no new files in desktop. And as you can see it going through, it's just going to take those changes and it will fix that up for us. Now, what you'll notice is it'll hit those documents, these ones here, but when it gets to the other directories like the downloads and the pictures, it should go through incredibly quickly because it's only looking there. You can see it's only looking for changes on the source, and it will mirror those changes onto your USB. So you can see what it's done here, 31 seconds. It's copied 187 meg of data to 1.6 gig in total, and it's skipped everything else. Doesn't need to copy it, it's going to be there. Likewise, if you were to have it in here, and let's say we just take one of those and let's say we delete it, and of course that change is going to make the change on the P drive, the pCloud system, and we can just check that. We should have a look at pCloud and make sure it's gone. And looking on that P drive, you can see yes, it is gone. It was sitting in here. So if we go back to the USB drive there and run it again, it will then pick up that change. And as you can see, incredibly fast, but it's saying, hey, there was an extra file on there which is now not necessary, so it's gone and deleted it. Now that means that you could completely change around all the structure of all your pictures, do your cleanup, do anything you want on those documents and those folders. And this little mirror utility is going to mirror everything you have from the cloud onto that USB drive as it was. Now do remember, obviously, it's going to be deleting things as well. It is a sync down to the USB. So really it's a good way of taking the current version. You could say, I want a copy of my cloud drive exactly as it is, and I want it to be dropped on the USB. Well, there you go. And now we can take that USB and walk away with it, and we have everything exactly as we need to on that pCloud. Now it might take a little bit longer if you've only got a 5 GB cache turned on and you might have 400 gigs worth of data. Obviously, if you're only using the pCloud, it's going to want to bring those down. But of course, it's only a one-time thing. Once it's on that USB, when you keep updating it with that same command, it's just going to look for the changes and it's going to mirror those changes. So that's definitely a good way to do it. Now let's have a look how we might do that with OneDrive now. So what we could do here is we could just copy and paste this file, rename it, edit it for the OneDrive. But in the interests of people that have skipped ahead for the OneDrive portion, I'm going to do this one completely again. So what I'll do is I'll just go in here and create a new file, new text document. We'll call it backup OneDrive. You can see it creates the new one, just a straight text document, which we can go into. And the syntax is basically the same as the pCloud version, but we do robocopy. Now we do need to know where the data is coming from. Where is it located? It's not as simple as just putting P drive because that's not where it is. So what we do to find it is we jump back into our File Explorer here, just go into say Documents here, and we click up into this area. You can see it gives us a location on the local drive of where things are. So what we'll do is we'll actually just go and grab that. Do not grab that backslash there. We don't need that. So we go here. Now we do need to put some speech marks around it because it has a space in it. We talked about that earlier. You can't run these robocopy commands with spaces. So that's there. And we need to grab the one for D. So if I go into OneDrive Backup and click up in here, you can see that is the location. We'll just copy and paste that. That doesn't have spaces, so we can just put that in there. Now we will put in the /s for the subdirectories. We'll put our miraculous mirror command in there, which is good. We're going to say retry on anything that's failed 0. Wait time on those retries is also 0. Now I'm going to add an extra one in here because when you're synchronizing your OneDrive down to your machine, it does create some system and hidden files which keep track of the syncing. It goes into that store as well. Now you can copy those, but there's really no point, and it's going to give you some interesting little bizarre, they're not really errors as such when it's copying, but it's going to try and skip them every time, and it sort of clutters up the screen a bit. So to avoid copying those, we put in a slash and it's X, which is exclude, exclude with an attribute of system and hidden. So it's the easy one to remember there once you get used to that, and that will do that for us. We'll put a pause on the end, and then we can save that one, and we're nearly ready to go. What we do need to do is just drop back here. We need to rename this file now. So the same as before, we do cmd. We just drag that down so you can see what's happening, and we'll go to D drive, just do a quick directory on there. You can see there's our backup OneDrive.txt. So we'll say rename space, and it's a big. Now obviously again you could do this in the File Explorer if you've got extensions turned on, but here we just hit tab space and put a B again. You can type it if you want to, but really the tab works great, and replace it with cmd. When we do that, you'll see it drops into a Windows command script. We can just close that window out, and now we can kick that off and see that start. So we just double click here, and it will run in the same way as it does for the P drive one we did earlier. So you can see it's picking it up slightly different location, obviously C drive, all of the automatic commands that are set on there, and we're just going to let that one run through and finish up. I'll come back when it's finished. That's done now. You can see it's slightly less data than the pCloud one. We're not doing things like the downloads and the music on that particular OneDrive copy, but as you can see, it's done everything, and everything all looks in order. Let's go and have a look at it on the drive itself. You can see it's even changed its little cute little icon. Isn't that lovely? Now we can here, you can see now we have local copies of everything, which is good. And likewise, if I were to go and delete or copy more files in and then rerun it, it will just synchronize those changes. So let's just go and do that. Let's suppose we take out this, I don't know, let's grab those files there, and we delete them. Let's say we delete them off the D drive, which is our backup. Like that, permanent delete them, and we make a bit of a mess. Right, let's go and delete that folder. Completely by mistake, obviously. But now what we'll do is we'll just go and run that again. Let's go to, so we're going to download here, go to D drive, and run the OneDrive backup, this one here. And you can see it's putting them back. It's recreating it as it was. We should see another folder pop in there in a second. Let me just bring it up there so you can see it happening. There, see some of the files are coming back in. It's resynchronizing the data. There we are, there's our folder back as well. So you can see now it's copied 212 meg back in. It skipped everything it didn't need to do, happened very quickly. You saw it happen in real time there. But really what I'm showing you is that if you were to mess with your backup, which I wouldn't suggest you do, but doing the synchronization, it's just going to get fixed completely by doing that. Now, obviously the same way, if I were to go into documents here and delete that folder, like so, and go back to the D drive, run the backup again, you can see very quickly what it's done is it says there was an extra directory and an extra file which it's now removed from the backup. So now you can see if I go in drive backup, have a look at documents, it's now gone. So it truly is a synchronization of what is happening in your OneDrive will then become on your local copy as well. Now, like I said before, this one we can now grab that USB stick and take it away, and we are completely backed up. You might want to put it in your safe or put it, I don't know, what do you ever want to do with it, but keep it safe. That is a copy of presence at that particular moment in time, exactly mirrored from your OneDrive or your pCloud account. So periodically you'd get it out and put it in the machine and just run each of these two files. If you wanted to, you could put both of those robocopy commands in one file if you had both of them and let it do the whole thing. It might take depending on how much data it's got to troll through, could be a little while to run, but it's then once it's completed, have a look at it, make sure you're happy with it, put it back in your safe and do whatever you need to do from there. But that, my friends, is a nice easy way, once you've got it set up, just to keep running that command, a nice easy way to make sure you've got a local backup of everything that exists in your cloud drives. So again, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, really appreciate that, and we will see you on the next one. Cheerio.